Hello and welcome to Follow the Money. I'm Raine Musñgi. Join us as we explore the tools and insights you need to jumpstart your financial journey. The Philippines needs to keep strong trade ties with China even as the trade deficit grows. That's according to the Philippine Exporters Confederation, or PhilExport. It points out China remains the biggest source of affordable goods and raw materials, which many local businesses rely on. PhilExport President Sergio Ortiz Luis Jr. warns limiting trade with China could increase costs for Filipino businesses and consumers. Data from the Philippine Statistics Authority, or PSA, shows the trade deficit with China grew by nearly 30%, from $15 billion in 2023 to $19.5 billion in the first 10 months of 2024. The Makabayan bloc is calling on the Marcos administration to pursue a more independent foreign policy as Donald Trump returns to the White House. Lawmakers warn that Trump's promise to crack down on immigration could create uncertainty for nearly 4 million Filipino Americans. They cite reports that around 309,000 undocumented Filipinos in the U.S. could face deportation under Trump's new policies. The group also criticized Trump's second term, calling it a threat to regional peace and Philippine sovereignty.
Isang madman's foreign policy ang punto de vista ni Trump. Isa siyang expansionist dahil sa ilalim ng kanyang US first policy ay gagawin niya ang lahat para siya ay makinabang 10 ng pagkontrol sa ekonomiya ng mas maliit na bansa, kasama na ang pagpapanawak ng kanyang mga neo-kolonya.
With Trump back in power, the impact on U.S.-Philippine relations remains unclear. But for now, officials say they are closely monitoring his next moves. Now, as Donald Trump embarks on his second term as President of the United States, the Philippines faces potential shifts in its economic landscape. From trade policies to foreign investments, understanding these changes is crucial for the nation's economic strategy. Today on Follow the Money, we are joined by Evariste Cagatan, Executive Director of the Department of Trade and Industry, to delve into these pressing issues. Aries, Executive Director, thank you so much for making time for us, and welcome to the program.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me here, Raine.
We appreciate you being here. Now, perhaps as a baseline, may we ask if you were already with the DTI and BOI during Trump's first term? What had been maybe the upsides or the challenges in U.S.-Philippine trade relations between the years 2017 and 2021?
27. Of course, I have been already with the BOI. Actually, this is my 35th year in BOI, but not in this role as Investments Promotions Services Executive Director. At the time, 2017 to 2021, I was still handling manufacturing industries from an industry development role. So I think at that time we had a very good performance as well in terms of our exports. And US, I think, at that time remained to be one of our trade and investment partners. Mm-hmm. But for this second term, we are actually optimistic that since the first term, the Trump administration showed interest in having a closer economic relationship with the Philippines, I think we can tap that opportunity for us in his second term.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, Some analysts were saying that right now, the trade policies, tariffs, for example, that Trump wants to impose on is not just centered on China this time, but more global. Given President Trump's inclination towards protectionist trade measures, do you expect Trump's policies to heighten trade tensions, lower investment perhaps toward the Philippines, reduce market efficiency, distort trade flows, and disrupt supply chains, while also increasing inflationary pressures, according to the IMF?
I think the Philippines has a balanced and a healthy trade relationship with the US. So based in the trade deficit in 2023 with the US, it was at about $4 billion, and compared to other Asian countries, so for example, China is at the 300 billion, Vietnam 109 billion, Japan 75 billion. We think that these countries with huge trade deficit with the US will rather be the likely targets for additional US tariffs. We are, as I've said earlier, we are even seeing that the Philippines can look at this second term of President Trump at opportunities for a healthier trade relationship. Given that, for example, his nominee for Department of State Secretary, Senator Marco Rubio, has been a strong proponent of closer economic and strategic ties between the US and the Philippines. In fact, he has filed a Philippines-US Strategic Partnership Act, which aims to enhance economic relations between the two countries. And there is also maybe an opportunity now to open discussions on a possible free trade agreement with the US, which was an interest of the Trump administration during his first term. In terms of semicon, which is our biggest export to globally and even to the US, we see that we will continue to be able to support the US with our exports. With the additional capacities being built by the US for advanced semiconductors, they will be needing a corresponding increase in the capacity for advanced assembly, packaging, and test services from outside of the US, as this will be too expensive to be done there. So I think the Philippines would have that opportunity to provide the what you call the assembly, packaging, and test services for the wafer fabs that are being built in the US. And in fact, the Philippines is among 6 countries selected for the International Technology Security and Innovation Fund, a key initiative of the CHIPS Act, to drive talent development and enhance semicon capabilities and supply chain resilience worldwide. So I think we are still definitely in the global value chain of semiconductors and the other manufacturing industries of the US.
Executive Director, you did mention already the FTA with the U.S. Is that still on? Is that going to proceed in February? Because U.S. Ambassador to the Philippines, Mary Kay Carlson, said that trade between the U.S. and Philippines remains strong, even without an FTA. Do you feel there is a need for an FTA at the moment?
Yes, I think an FTA will definitely give a very good signal to the world on the ability of the Philippines to be part of global value chains. So even though our exports to the US remain robust even without it, I think there is very big value of actually having a free trade agreement, because it may actually also include sectoral collaborations perhaps, leveraging on our critical minerals, for example, which is very important right now in the global trend for cleaner technologies, cleaner energy. And so we have those critical minerals that everybody would need for this transition.
Now, with the potential for U.S. companies to reshore operations under Trump's America First agenda, are there strategies that the DTI is implementing to attract and retain foreign investments in the Philippines?
So we continue to leverage on our human resources, natural resources, as I've said, specifically critical minerals, and our geostrategic location in the Indo-Pacific, which is very important globally, not just for the US. We are positioning the Philippines to be the hub for globally competitive, sustainability, and innovation-driven manufacturing and services. And with the global transition to clean energy and clean technologies, we see the Philippines to remain relevant in the global value chains that will require the right workforce, a reliable source of the critical minerals that are a must-have for clean energy, and a viable provider of clean or renewable energy. This would be the main value proposition that Philippines has to offer to foreign investors looking for the ideal investment destination. And alongside this, government has already introduced amendments to economic laws to open up for FDIs. Not only that, we have introduced enhancements to improve ease of doing business in the country. Specifically, there is the creation of the Green Lane for strategic investments under Executive Order 18, which complements the EODB law. And last but not the least, of course, we are offering now competitive investment incentives package under the newly passed Create More Act.
Right. And meanwhile, while all of this is happening, of course, the Philippines also seems to be pivoting away from China. But President Trump seems to be warming up to Chinese President Xi Jinping. Do you see this as an impetus for Manila to revisit our strategy and ties with China?
In terms of, for example, for investments and trade, we have maintained relations and our investments and trade promotions with China. We recognize that China really still remains to be a manufacturing powerhouse from which many of subcomponents, raw materials would be coming from. So it would be good that that we intensify relationships with all economic partners. With our goal is to give the best value for Philippine businesses or those that are located in the country. So if it means that the tension between, or the geopolitical tension would mean that there will be more or openness for China and the US to still continue and strengthen exports to the Philippines and vice versa, then I think there's nothing wrong with that. We continue to promote investments, to attract investments from China. I mean, we continue to invite Chinese investments into the Philippines, especially recognizing that in some sectors they are really far ahead, and we would need this technology to advance our own.
Can we talk more about those sectors where we might be behind already, especially now that Trade Secretary Roque is in Davos for the World Economic Forum along with Finance Chief Recto? We know that they are attending some sessions there. Can we dive deeper into those sectors where we need a little bit more push?
The priority sectors for the Philippines, as I've said, we're positioning the Philippines as a hub for smart and sustainable manufacturing and services. So our priorities really would be for clean energy. We would want investments in renewable energy, and not just in the development of the energy itself, but also in building the ecosystem, meaning manufacturing also of the parts and components, for example, for wind power facility, for solar panels, and so on. Part of the priorities as well would be on e-vehicle ecosystem, leading up to the battery manufacturing, where our critical minerals would be very important. Of course, we are also prioritizing semiconductors and electronics, as well as telco infrastructure, high-tech agriculture. Very important would be the value adding or the processing of our critical minerals, and also manufacturing, smart manufacturing of consumer goods.
You already talked about telcos. Considering the significant role of the BPO industry, or business process outsourcing sector in the Philippines, do you expect that perhaps U.S. policies aimed at bringing jobs back to America might impact employment within this industry?
We are unsure if the U.S. will also impose protectionist measures on outsourcing services. If it does, we believe the BPO industry will stay strong. It has, in fact, weathered many challenges and concerns over the years, but we have seen its resilience and continued strong growth. I think there will remain to be services that the U.S. companies would rather keep within their shores, but there will be those that, for efficiency and cost effectiveness reasons, would still be more viable to outsource. And with our strength in the English language, adaptability to Western cultures, the long-standing operations here of U.S. companies, just making sure that we continue to upskill. As technology advances, I believe we can ensure that the Philippines remains as an indispensable partner in the global IT BPM landscape. Hence, our BPO sector, I think, would remain to be a significant contributor to our exports and economic growth.
Lots more to talk about, but we need to pause for a break. When we come back, as we explore how U.S. immigration policies under President Trump could affect the flow of remittances, vital to the Philippine economy. Stay on BNC and follow the money.
The latest news, national issues,
with regard to was very vocal about charter change.
the political scene, the trust and approval ratings of President Bongbong Marcos and Vice President Sara Duterte decline, and conversations with prominent personalities.
Brings back wonderful memories of past Christmases when I was a little boy in Iloilo.
Be timely informed, be insightful of the news. All these firsthand at the forefront.
Lifestyle, beauty, food. We got you.
If you want a gift that gives back, memories that is, this one is on my wish list too.
Join Marie Lozano where she uncovers the untold stories and surprises in the world of lifestyle.
I had already accepted my excess baggage fate. Time to show me what you're really about.
The Lifestyle Lab on BNC, the Bilyonaryo News Channel. First, updated, on top of everything, and focused on the things that matter most. This is who you want to be. So scan your digital boxes now and search for Bilyonaryo News Channel. Always on top.
Welcome back to Follow the Money. We're still with Evariste Cagatan, Executive Director of Investments Promotion Services for the BOI at the DTI. Evariste, let's talk about currency fluctuations. Do you anticipate that these shifts in U.S. economic policies could influence the Philippine peso? And are there measures being considered to mitigate potential currency volatility?
I think in general, since U.S. is a very big economy, any shift in economic policy may affect inflation, interest rate, and therefore the balance of payments. That could translate to movements in currency. But what the government or the economic managers are doing or contemplating to do regarding that, I am not really privy on the measures that they are currently considering. But I'm sure since now the inflation has been managed and they have anticipated any economic policy shift, then I'm sure our economic managers are already having these measures taken into consideration, which would affect our own inflation rates, interest rates, and balance of payments.
Certainly, and of course also the cost of goods and services. Now, in light of possible changes in trade agreements and tariffs, are there projections that the government has already made on the cost of imported goods and services in the Philippines and how this might affect the average consumer?
I'm not sure if any agency has already done some projections, but in general, if there is a trade agreement between countries, of course, we expect better access to each other's markets by way of tariff cuts on products agreed upon under the trade agreement. So if we are to import a product that is subject of the liberalized tariffs under the trade agreement, then we can project that we will be able to import that at lower or even zero tariffs, which would redound to a lower cost of that imported good compared to when we did not have the trade agreement. And the effect on the consumer, of course, would be lower cost, and it gives the consumer more product choices, which she can buy depending on his priorities, needs, and financial capacity.
Right. Of course, we're also thinking about tourism in the Philippines, of course, with the U.S. being a significant source of tourists for our country. How might changes in U.S. travel advisories or policies impact the local tourism industry?
I hope the U.S. policy would be encouraging more U.S. citizens to travel to the Philippines because that would really help boost our local tourism industry. Even an increase in trade and investments from the U.S. to the Philippines will increase the travels of U.S. citizens to the country, which would then give them time to appreciate the beauty of our country, our people, and our culture. And if they bring their families along with them or invite their friends over, I mean, these investors or these U.S. business people, just by word of mouth, we would be able to promote tourism in the country.
Now, looking at the overall economic outlook and considering all the various factors that we've discussed, what might be your outlook on the Philippine economy's resilience and adaptability during President Trump's second term?
If you would look at the projections of multilateral institutions, they maintain an optimistic outlook on the Philippine economy for 2025, and this is supported really by a stronger consumer demand, increased investments, and recovering exports. So in terms of investments and exports, we're optimistic because, as I've said earlier, we might have a free trade agreement, which will increase our exports, increased investments, especially if we are talking about maybe semicon, for which we are a beneficiary of the CHIPS Act ITSI fund that will upskill our workforce so that it can support the assembly, packaging, and test of the U.S. semiconductor facilities. I think the latest projections as well of credit rating agencies indicate their confidence in the strong growth momentum of the Philippines. So under the second term of President Trump, we are actually looking at opportunity to really, for the Philippines to really be able to leverage on our close relationship with the US and our very geostrategic location in the Indo-Pacific, which is very important for the US. And based on the interest of President Trump in his first term to have that FTA with the Philippines, if this can actually happen in his second term, then the possible benefits of that would be very significant. For now, just to reap the harvest of upskilling our workforce under the CHIPS Act, to be able to support global semiconductor industry, which remains to be our top export product, that would bear a lot of bright prospects for the Philippines. But as we say in BOI, the future is bright, the timing is right, but the competition is tight, so we need all hands on deck to make it happen in the Philippines.
I can sense your optimism, and we're really looking forward to the actualization, realization of all your targets in the coming year, of 4 years of another Trump term. Thank you so much, Evariste Cagatan, Executive Director of the Department of Trade and Industry, for sharing your crucial insights on these critical issues. We appreciate you sharing your time and thought with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Raine.
It's a pleasure to have you. And as we've discussed, the Philippines faces both challenges and opportunities in light of President Trump's policies, and strategic planning will be essential to navigate the evolving economic environment. Now, before we go, we leave you with this thought from economist Milton Friedman. The greatest danger to the consumer is the monopolist who raises prices and the protectionist who raises barriers to trade. And that is it for today's edition of Follow the Money. I'm Raine Musñgi. Thank you so much for watching. Keep it here on BNC, the Bilyonaryo News Channel, always on top.